Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whenever you are watching this throughout the week here at the end of April. A little more of your history. It's the 26th of April, 1915. William S. Elmore, an aviator born in Goldthwaite, Texas in 1915. Learned to fly in 1936. Barnstorming pilot and carnival stunt flyer, Wyoming. Marries 1938 and marries a second time to Catherine Yackley. U.S. Air Corps 1942 to 46, operated air taxi service and flight service, Casper, Wyoming. Headed and came to Alaska, homesteaded at Rabbit Creek near Anchorage. Joined the Alaska National Guard as a pilot in 1954, flight training supervisor. 1955, Base Detachment Commander. 1956, Head of Coulis Air National Guard in Anchorage. 1959, Adjutant General in Juneau. Ended up as an Air Operations Officer for the National Guard and Flight Inspector. Adjutant General of the National Guard with state conferred rank of Major General. 1971-73. And ended up an Assistant Operations Officer at the International Airport in Anchorage, 1973, and don't have the rest of that to back it up. 27th of April, 1875, Charles Davenport Jones, a minor laborer born in Zanesville, Ohio, on the 26th of April, 1875, marries Loretta Mary Sands Sexton on October 22. Two daughters. One will be Mrs. Larry Galvin of Nome, which were longtime residents of Nome. Ranch hand, railroad section hand, bank clerk, circulation department employee, Chicago Tribune from 1891 to 1900. Moved to Nome June 12 of 1900. Worked as a longshoreman, the Seward Peninsula Railroad employee, prospector, miner for the Alaska Road Commission, as a foreman for 8 years, Territorial House of Representatives from 1913 to 1915, State Representatives 1959 to 1961. And if you look at that, that's almost 50 years later and still active politically. Territorial Senator, 1947 to 1952, 1953 to 1957, President of the Senate in 1953, U.S. Marshal of the 2nd Judicial Division, 1925 to 1933, Tourist Guide, Wien Air, Alaska. You remember that? Summer months. One of the three to cast Alaska's first electoral ballots for U.S. President, December 1960. Dies in the Pioneer home in Sitka, May 17, 1963. He was a founding member of the Pioneer Igloo No. 1 in Nome, which was the beginning of the Pioneers of Alaska. 1876. James Joseph Commerce, miner merchant born in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. Orphaned at an early age, self-educated, marries Catherine Collins in Kent, Washington. Emigrated to the U.S. in 1893, worked in the lumber camp, lineman, construction foreman for a telephone company, mine operator, mercantile business, Nome, Kendall, proprietor hotel in Council, little town that was pretty big at one time, east of Nome. Now no permanent residence from 1902 to 1914. Operator and owner of Connors Motor Company in Juneau, 1915 to 1933. Hyder resident from 1914 to 15. Juneau City Councilman in 1918. 1922 to 24, Mayor of Juneau, 1925 to 1926, Democratic National Committee, 1918 to 1934, Collector of Customs, 1933 to 1951, dies Seattle, Washington, December 16, 1951. And in 1915, on the 27th of April, Alaska Native Citizenship Bill was signed into law by the territorial governor, John Strong, thus allowing any native of Alaska to appear before the court in a judicial district and be granted citizenship. Not so easy, because it called for throwing off those habits and customs of the old communal life and required to learn to read and write English. In 1917, the Juneau Treadwell mine, where gold was first discovered in 1881, mine floods, closing all of the operations except for the ready bullion section of the mine, which later closes in 1922, shutting down the first real major gold discovery in Alaska. It's your history. Glad you've been with me. See you next week.